up? All right, Javon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Off the Bench, the podcast that is for the fan, by the fan. Today we have a very special guest in addition to our two excellent analysts, the mainstays on the show. You know them as Kevin Cornegay and Mr. Sean Dustin. But today we have a very special guest, Mr. Nick Lozito, former writer for NBA.com and SAC-B, my former partner at Sac State for Sac State Men's Hoops. He was the play-by-play, I was the color commentary, and we were awesome. We were an awesome team. We have the audio for those of you that are interested in hearing. We really did this. We really did it, and we did it well. Also, this gentleman was a writer as well as a sports editor for the Hornet, which is a Sac State school newspaper. So he is very credentialed, has a lot of accolades, and we are happy to have him on our show. So we'd like to welcome you, Mr. Nick Lozito, to Off the Bench.
Here. What's up, you guys? What's up, Kevin, Sean, Javon?
What's up?
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Kevin.
This is a pleasure, man. I've known Nick for a long time. Wrote with him at the Hornet student newspaper at Sac State, man, and even watched. I went to a few of those games where you guys were calling games at Sac State men's basketball team, and was piping the broadcast through some headphones, man. You guys were terrific, and I'm glad to have a guy from Oaktown, Oakland's finest, in the house, Mr. Nick Lozito, man. So welcome to
we
the
called
show.
some legendary games.
Absolutely.
Sac State against Wyoming Catholic, Sac State against Great Falls, Sac State against Southern Western Illinois State. Oh. Basically Final Four stuff.
He said Wyoming. Mr. Sean Dustin, how you doing out there?
Man, I'm blessed, man. I'll tell you what, to be able to walk into this type of history and lineage and, just already knowing the association by already being associated to some great people and some very knowledgeable sports heads. I feel like I'm just part of an extension of a camaraderie that's decades in the making, man. So I feel honored to even be amongst greatness, man, and I'm ready to rock.
Let's do it.
Listen, you blend right into the greatness. You are one of the foremost analysts in the world and have been. So nothing happens by chance. That's the way I see it. We have one more thing that we would like to do. Today is a very special day for one of our beloved analysts. 39 years ago, the gentleman Kevin Cornegay was born to this world, and we are ever thankful and ever glad for that. Today is Kevin Cornegay's birthday, so for those of you that may be watching live with us, let's give this man a round of applause for being a successful father, a successful husband, successful on the professional level, and clearly you guys see what he does and what he brings to the sports world. So congratulations to our brother, Mr. Kevin Cornegay, on another birthday, sir.
Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah, appreciate that. Just extremely humbled, man. I'm humbled, and just thank God for another opportunity, and I'm looking forward to a lot more because I just want to see. I love to see greatness, man. And one of the things is I take so much joy as I get older in seeing other people succeed and have success and be great. I love to see it. I love to share in other people's successes, man. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And let's get the show going.
Let's get the show going. And boy, are we going to start out with a heavy topic. So Monday Night Football used to be the spotlight for America. That's before Sunday Night Football kind of became the de facto Monday night game because it's on NBC. but for those of you that have ESPN, Monday Night Football still carries that name, Monday Night Football. And this Monday, we have my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers versus a hated AFC North rival, the Cincinnati Bengals. And needless to say, it got ugly, fellas. It got ugly. Now, the old heads, the old NFL guard that believed in physicality and prove how much tougher you are than the man across from you, would have loved the game that we had on Monday. But with some of the information that we've been receiving regarding head trauma, concussions, and the effects of CTE, I think we all looked at that game on Monday through a different lens. And so the big hits and the helmet-to-helmet hits are now things that we consider to be extreme violence. We don't get excited about it because we know that there's stories of individuals that have suffered from CTE, and we know what some of those side effects are and how devastating it can be to that person and to their family. So I think we're all looking at things through a different lens. And to top it off, we saw what happened with Ryan Shazier, a great young linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Speed like you've never seen from that position, sideline to sideline, playmaker. And to see his legs go limp and to see him grab his back and then grasp his hands as if he was trying to make sure that he had feeling in his hands was truly frightening. And so, again, I think we're looking at things through a different lens. So my question to you, gentlemen, and there were other incidents that happened throughout that game with the knowledge that something potentially devastating had happened to Mr. Shazier. There was the Juju Smith-Schuster hit on Vontaze Burfict. Some people would say that Vontaze had it coming. There was the helmet-to-helmet contact from George Iloka on a touchdown pass from Antonio Brown. And then Joe Mixon, lost in this. Joe Mixon, Bengals running back, was knocked out of that game as well. So, gentlemen, my question to you, and we'll start this with the birthday boy, Mr. Kevin Cornegay. My question to you is, when we look back at it, will that game on Monday night between the Steelers and Bengals, will that be a watershed moment for the NFL to where they finally say, listen, one game for a hit to the head is not enough. If you hit somebody and it's to the head, 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, to really drive home the point that these players really need to take an active interest in protecting themselves as opposed to leaving it up to the league to legislate fines. Will this game be a watershed moment for the NFL for some of the changes that could be coming down the pipe? And I'll start with you, Kev.
If Ryan Shazier never walks again, you're damn right. This could be that watershed moment. I guess the latest report was he had surgery on his spine to try to stabilize it. So obviously, he was making progress. I guess when the swelling went down, they saw a little bit more damage there. So he had spinal surgery. But if he's never able to walk again, you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be some changes. The NFL what they have to do is they have to look forward into the future. What is the long-term stability of the sport of football? It's all going to come down to safety and these hits and the individuals that they have to convince that the sport is safe enough is the mothers out there. Mothers to children who are 9, 10, 11 years old, maybe 7, 8 years old. They've got to convince those mothers that this sport is safe enough to play. That's the future of the NFL. Guys who are in high school now, getting ready to go to college, you don't have to worry about those individuals. They're going to continue to play the sport, okay? But it's that Pop Warner, it's that youth football league. The NFL has to convince those parents that this sport is safe. Remember, Monday Night Football comes on 8:30 on the East Coast, 5:30 out here on the West Coast. It's a family show. Kids are watching the games. My own son asked a question, why can't that guy get up? He saw the hit. And he was asking why he wasn't able to get up. So we had a quick conversation about it. He goes to his room. He comes out later talking about, oh, I'm never going to play football again. And that's just him seeing that one hit to Ryan Shazier. Especially after that, when you had guys kneeling down, praying, you had tears in some people's eyes on both sides of the aisle, and for them to continue to play with reckless abandon the way that they were. The hit on Antonio Brown, even though it was the shoulder pad, it was still up to the head and neck area. The Juju Smith-Schuster, those blind shots that we used to love Hines Ward when he made those blind shots, those crackback blocks, okay, breaking guys' jaws. They're going to have to legislate that out of the game because you're going to end up having less participants, especially at the lower levels. Not as many guys wanting to play the sport of football. I was on a guy's Twitter, and I forget the guy's name. He was the young Rutgers player who was paralyzed. I was on his Twitter, and he was making comments. So I think that the NFL is definitely going to reach a crossroads. And remember, guys, we have old players killing themselves, committing suicide because of CTE. Junior Seau, one of the all-time greats, committing suicide. So the NFL has to get a handle on this. Hopefully, Ryan Shazier is able to walk again, forget about his football career. And, I do think the NFL has to legislate this thing, and they've got to get a little bit tougher. And you know what? Throw out these Thursday night football games. There's a Thursday night game on right now. We got to get rid of those games too. But hopefully, that's what's going to happen as we go forward.
All right, great commentary. Nick, Mr. Lozito, what's your take on what you saw on Monday night?
I think the tough thing is, and you saw Mike Mitchell talking about it earlier today or yesterday, the safety for the Steelers is defenders don't really know what to do, and they're kind of caught in a situation where they're told to win football games, but at the same time they're suspended and have $100,000 taken away from them for hits. And I think the no helmet hit is probably maybe where the game has to go, where you just completely take any shots with your head or to the head out of it, and you're going to have to come up with some type of technology that sets off some alarm when you make contact with the helmet, and that you have to make it all on the defender, because you can't have any gray area, because you have to wipe out the whole thing if the offensive player ducks down and then the defensive player has an excuse for why he hit him, and you just got to eliminate all of it and just say any contact to the head or by the head with the head is illegal. And then make the suspension, 4 games or 8 games or something like that. That's the only way I can see it done. But even then, you're going to have injuries. You got people running at each other full speed, trying to stop each other from getting to a point. They're going to use their shoulder. They're going to use their waist. They're going to use their legs. They're going to use whatever they have to do to stop Marshawn Lynch at 230 pounds, the greatest running back ever, from getting that extra yard. And you're going to have nasty collisions. I mean, I don't see any way around it. And even if you do alter the rules, unless you go down to basically flag football, and that's not to knock flag football, but that's what it could become.
So
I mean, it's got to be very clear, and there has to be some technology behind it to help enforce it, because you just can't have these judgment calls made about what's too far and what when it comes to hitting a guy. You just have to take all those questions out of it.
So Nick, my question, and I'll get to you in just a second, Sean. Nick, my question to you is it incumbent upon the players, the brotherhood? I've heard rumblings of the players are they play for different teams, but they're really one brotherhood. Is it incumbent upon them to really meet and have a players only meeting, or have representation at a meeting from all the teams, to have them really come together and say, hey, listen, I know we have rivalries on the field. I know we're paid to win, and we're paid to clearly do what we need to do to advance our own careers, as well as the wins and losses for a program. But isn't it incumbent upon them to get together and say, listen, if something dirty happens, we're going to deal with it at our level. So now they start holding each other accountable in that way. Is it incumbent upon them to do that to get to where the game could be safer?
I think so, but I think you have different players with different mindsets. And I mean, think about if you were playing tackle football out in the backyard as a kid and you tried to have that meeting with everyone and said what the rules should be. You know, they want to win, and they want to fight they want to go out there and they want to fight. I think a lot of guys go out there, they enjoy the contact, they enjoy kind of putting a hit on another guy, and so I don't know if it's just about the players or the league or this or that. It's just a dangerous game, and if you go out there and play it as the rules are set right now, then there's a good chance somebody's going to get hurt. I don't think players talking to each other really would do much, because I think there's some players out there who like it. Vontez Burfict seems to like going out there and knocking people around. And if the rules say he can do it, he's going to do it.
And Nick, to add to Vontez Burfict, I even think he enjoyed getting knocked out. You could see him as he was knocked out on the ground. He's still trying to reach for Juju Smith's leg. He gets back to the locker room. They have to carry him off. He gets back to the locker room. He gets up and says, I don't need to be carted off. He gets up and starts walking. So I think he even enjoyed that. Sean, you're a brilliant guy. I'd like for you to comment on a couple different things. Number one, respond to what you saw on Monday night. And two, what can be done to make a dangerous game as safe as possible?
I'm going to take an old school feel here. I'm sorry. I loved it. I loved AFC North football. I like seeing guys get smacked around. It's a violent sport. I think that's like saying, hey, do you want low-fat pizza? No, I don't want low-fat pizza. That's that's an oxymoron. I want AFC North, smash mouth, run the ball, hit people in the face. You come across the middle, you're getting laid out. That's football. I'm sorry. I understand that there's a sentiment. I understand there's been technological advances that say these are the long-term adverse effects of a collision sport. And guess what? Coal miners get black lung. People that are in certain labor-intensive jobs get hip replacements or knee replacements. There are inherent risks in whatever profession that you choose to take. There's people that commit suicide in high-pressure jobs and in corporate world. Whatever your profession is, and if you choose to want to be in a violent sport, I think Nick made a great point. A lot of this stuff is primal.
Whoa. No. Sounds like I got an NFL lawyer in my apartment.
A lot of this stuff is primal. It's hard to tell players that have been taught their entire life, when it's coached this way, you hit this way, this is the way you play, to now all of a sudden the culture of the league, not because the NFL cares about players. That's why there's non-guaranteed contracts. That's why they had to be told when, how long to practice. You can't do double days. These are things that are being whistleblown later in the game, not because they care about the players, because they care about their sponsorship. They care about their money. They don't care about the long-term effects of the NFL on these players. Let's not kid ourselves. These players know what risks they're taking. Guys that get knocked out when they come back and play. Guys that are boxing and get knocked out on their feet when they tell the ref, no, I can keep going. These are competitors at the highest level. And either we protect the game and make it a different game, or we celebrate what we've long liked about the game, or just say it has to be safer. So for me, I don't.
Sorry. No, I look at it like we went out and played as kids, and why did we go out there as kids and play football instead of baseball or basketball? Because we wanted to hit someone.
Absolutely. And playing through injury, seeing how tough you can be, whatever the case may be, that was just part of the game. Keep in mind, it's really hard to police this type of thing because the on the play that possibly caused, a temporary paralysis, and as polarizing as it was to see that was a routine hit. That was a routine play. That's a tackle that people make every day, that he's going to wrap up the guy, his head accidentally, the crown of his helmet accidentally hits, he gets a stinger, or, now leading to something much more vicious, versus on the Antonio Brown hit, on the other hit, these are guys intentionally going to lick somebody, and these players weren't injured. These players weren't injured the same way that somebody just making a routine tackle. So how do you police that? I mean, it's like a lot of people have alluded to, when an offensive player all of a sudden goes to catch the ball and goes down, and you have this big of a space to hit with your shoulder. Your shoulders are attached to your head. You're going to lean with your shoulder. Your head's attached to it. It just makes it much more difficult on the defender. There's a lot of gray areas. How can I hit? How can I hit legally? How can I still intimidate or discourage somebody from catching the ball or dislodge a ball without doing something that I might get fined $100,000 for unintentionally? I think it just makes it very difficult, and the onus is now completely on the defensive side of the ball, when offensive players lead with the crown of their helmet all the time. As a running back, get lower, lean your head in. This is taught. This is part of the game. And for these players these coaches to overreact, former coaches, John Gruden is sitting here complaining about a peelback block, and this guy ran some of the most short bubble screens, crack a guy back. He preached this stuff. So for you to overreact now as an analyst, I'm kind of over it. It's really difficult to gauge what you can do and what you can't do. And so as much as it hurts to see, you don't ever want to see hurt players, at the end of the day, that kind of extreme is a very small percentage of what actually happens on the NFL field or the college field or football in general.
But Sean, I think to John Gruden's point, I think we evolve as people, and I think sometimes the lens that we view things through changes over time. John Gruden's been around football for a very, very long time. He was a coach that taught physicality. He's got that look. He would have that Chucky face that would, you could just see him just boiling if a play wasn't executed right or if a tackle wasn't made. And so I think it adds more credibility when someone like John Gruden says that what I saw on Monday was disgusting. The peel back blocks and the shots to the head, as someone that grew up in that culture. And so I think what you said is absolutely correct. There is an inherent risk when you're going to be playing the game of football. I think the NFL is done, I don't want to say a great job, but they've done as good a job as they can to make the game safer in light of some of the concussion and head trauma things that they hid from the public. Let's call it what it is. But there is an inherent risk when you have 200-pound, 250-pound, 300-pound men moving faster than most humans will ever dream of moving. There's a risk there.
Here's my only thing, is that these coaches, these players, the league in general, they have all sorts of analytics. How much faster players have gotten, the pounds of pressure they hit with, all of this information. They have not been proactive with this information. You know what? Today's athlete is faster, they're stronger, we have to get ahead of this. There's not been any of that. All of this has been reactive. All of this has been, we're going to get sued. Players want money. The people they uncovered this dirty little secret we knew. everything's been reactive. This isn't the league doing a great job to make sure that, people are protected and that the former players have insurance and that current players are protected and have adequate rest time between a Sunday night and a Thursday game. This is not that. This is completely 100% reactive, and that's my problem to it. And you have high-powered lawyers, you have analytics, you have doctors and trainers on every team, but I guarantee you don't completely agree with the protocols that the NFL has set forth. That is my issue. That at the end of the day, the business pushes the policy, and that's why they react to these things. Not because they care about the well-being of the players, because they don't want to lose money, and they want to put a product that if kids are watching, and you know what, if that's our demographic now, if that's where the target is moved, we need to hit that target. It's as simple as that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of great points. I don't think it's as simple as they don't care about protecting player safety. Obviously, the almighty dollar is always going to trump anything like player safety if it's going to compromise the bottom line for the league. But as you mentioned, at the end of the day, it's a business, and the NFL is about making sure that the business of the NFL is as successful as possible. So great points from all three of you fellas. I'm sure this won't be the last time that we have conversations regarding head trauma and the physicality of the NFL. But sticking with football, college football playoffs, Alabama's in. Clemson is in. The Georgia Bulldogs are in. The Oklahoma Sooners are in. The Ohio State Buckeyes. The Ohio State Buckeyes are out. Fellas, did the playoff committee get this thing right? Did they get it right? Last year, they set the precedent when they let a one-loss Ohio State team in that was not the Big Ten champion. They didn't even participate in their conference championship. Penn State would end up winning that, and they went on to the Rose Bowl to play USC, while Ohio State advanced to the college football playoff. Now they got smoked and shut out by Clemson, but nevertheless, they advanced. The committee set the tone last year. They said, we don't necessarily care about conference championships as it pertains to determining who the best four teams are. So this year, the Ohio State Buckeyes are on the outside looking in. The Alabama Crimson Tide. I love me some Nick Saban, boy. The Alabama Crimson Tide are in with one loss. They did not play in the conference championship game. They got to rest last week. They get in, and I happen to personally think that they're the favorite going into this college football playoff. But I will start with you, Mr. Kevin Cornegay. Did the committee get this thing right? And does Ohio State have a legitimate gripe with two losses but being the Big Ten champion? Do they have a legitimate gripe to be in this playoff?
Absolutely, they have a legitimate gripe. They have the better wins. They played more games. Alabama played 8 conference games. Then they played Mercer, sandwiched in between Mississippi State and their Iron Bowl matchup. So essentially what you have is this. You have Alabama on the strength of everyone believing that they're the best team in the country, getting in because they have the cachet of being ranked number 1 earlier in the year. And they never, and obviously they went undefeated until they lost their last game. The way it is for me, you can lose. It just depends on when you lose. You can't lose your last game and then get a mulligan and then get back into the playoff picture. If you're going to lose, lose early. That's what Ohio State did. Everyone points to the 31-point loss at Iowa. They lost that game 4 or 5 weeks ago. Since then, they've been dominant. Obviously, they did not dominate in the Big Ten championship game. And I believe if they were able to go ahead and put away Wisconsin when they were up I believe they were up 14-0, something like that. If they were able to get a 20 to 25 point victory, I think the committee would have put him in. But essentially, Alabama got in by playing less games, less conference games, losing their last game. They had the easiest road to get into the playoff. They didn't beat anybody this year. Not only that, they get the 4 seed, so they get to play in New Orleans, which is a SEC city, against the defending national champions. If you are an Alabama fan, Christmas came early. You got into the playoff. You essentially get a home game. Your campus is closer to New Orleans than it is for Clemson. You played less games, less wear and tear on your body. This isn't the same Alabama team that everybody is used to. They're used to that dominant wrecking ball defense, that wrecking ball running game, and they're used to having a quarterback who can sling it around every now and then. The quarterback can't throw the football. Their running game right now is suspect due to the injuries on their offensive line. And defensively, they're not getting after the quarterback like they normally do. And their defensive backfield, Nick Saban has had problems in his defensive backfield for the last couple of years. It just takes a quality college quarterback to be able to exploit that. And that'll happen in this semifinal matchup. If people think that Alabama is going to beat the defending champ Clemson, then they're not looking at as much tape as they may lead you to believe. So I don't think they got that right. As far as the committee, they're going to have to make a decision. You're either going to say the conference championships matter or they don't matter. If they did not matter, then why do we have Georgia in the playoff? They won their conference. Why do we have Clemson in the playoff? They had a de facto playoff game against Miami. Clemson won their end. Georgia won their end. And then Oklahoma, same thing. They beat TCU their end. So you're telling me for 3 out of the 4 matchups, the conference championship mattered. But in the Big Ten, which is the best conference in America, the Big Ten is the best conference in America, that champion doesn't get in. So instead we have 2 SEC teams, an ACC, and a Big 12 team. So you're leaving 2 other conferences in the Power 5 out of the playoff. So I think they have to make the adjustment there. But it's going to be some nice matchups. Obviously, a Rose Bowl matchup, Oklahoma, Georgia. I like Oklahoma big in that game. I'm not sold on Georgia. And then we have Clemson, Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, and I'm going with Clemson in that matchup. I just don't think the SEC conference is as good as everybody makes it out to be. And remember Auburn. Auburn lost 3 football games this year. 3. They lost 3 football games this year. And we were talking about them getting into the playoff if they beat Georgia with 2 losses, the same as Ohio State. So that's my thoughts on it. I thought they got it wrong. I know America is going to love to see it because we have the high-powered programs, high-powered coaches. Nick Saban, he'll be able to compete. Dabo Swinney for Clemson. And then we have the Oklahoma Georgia matchup as well. So that's my thoughts.
Kevin, quick question for you. Are the Alabama Crimson Tide one of the best 4 teams in the country? When we take a look at talent and you take a look at the eye test, are they one of the best 4 teams, conference championships aside, are they one of the best 4 teams in the country?
I don't know. And that's the thing. That's why we have to settle that on the field. Because I saw some things in the Auburn game that really alarmed. Actually, I saw some things in the Texas A&M game, Mississippi State, and the Auburn game that really alarmed me. And that was guys being able to move the football on them through the air. If you were to tell me Ohio State versus Alabama tomorrow, I would pick Bama by a point. But understanding, though, that Ohio State, talent for talent with Alabama, just as talented. Ohio State has 8 guys on their defensive line that will be playing NFL football. There's no way Bama would run the ball on Ohio State. No chance. And Ohio State would get to their quarterback as well. That game would be a lot closer than a lot of people give them credit for. And remember in the Sugar Bowl a few years back, the favorite Alabama taking on upstart Ohio State with Cardell Jones. What happened in that matchup? So I just think that, when we talk about matchups, Ohio State matches up very well against Alabama. And I don't know if they're a top 4 team. I don't know. I think they're a top 5, top 6, but I don't know if they're top 4. I don't know. They haven't played anybody. They haven't beaten anybody. Mississippi State's their best win. LSU is their best win. So I don't know how good they are.
Great point. You just said that Alabama would be a 1-point favorite against Ohio State. That
Yes.
is confirmation that you believe that they are one of the top 4 teams in the country, which is the same thing that Kirby Holcutt and the rest of those guys on the committee were evaluating. So, but I definitely do understand your concerns. It's a flawed system, but it sure is exciting. Sean Dustin, I believe you called the Georgia Bulldogs in an upset of the Auburn Tigers. I believe you called that.
Yes, you did.
Props for that, and congratulations. You also called the USC victory over Stanford. So for a guy that claims not to be a college football expert, your picks this year certainly are saying different. Sean,
Right.
did the committee get this thing right? Did they get this thing right? And do you think Ohio State has a legitimate gripe for not being in the college football playoff?
I'll be honest. I was kind of conflicted. I think Kevin made some outstanding points, but how do you leave a 1-loss Alabama team out over a 2-loss Ohio State team? And the way that they lost, I hear what you're saying as far as when did they lose, but like, what team has looked like really good against Auburn's defensive line? Like, I mean, what team has like really looked like they just shined against Auburn? As a committee, how do you not put this team in there? Not just because of their previous, their history, and I understand that this isn't the same Bama team that we're accustomed to seeing, but I think it's fair to say that the linebacker position is pretty important in college football. I think anybody would agree with that. Like, how healthy was Bama's linebacker core this year?
They weren't. They weren't healthy. They weren't.
They were depleted, and they lost one game. People want to say, you can say whatever you want about Nick Saban. The guy knows how to get his guys ready and knows how to coach. They probably shouldn't have won some of the games they did win this year, albeit their ease of schedule relative to Ohio State. They did. Wisconsin losing was huge in the seeding and who got in. And at the end of the day, when they started having to make tough decisions, Ohio State, Alabama, Crimson Tide, they lost one time. They haven't had their linebacker core. There's no definitive set rules. This is a committee that uses a plethora of criteria to decide who gets in. At the end of the day, I don't think you can make a legitimate, definitive gripe that Ohio State was a better ball club than the Crimson Tide. I don't. I think it's something you can debate, but I don't think it's something at the end of the day you can lose sleep over. And I don't necessarily think that they got it wrong, to be honest with you. And none of these teams, and I know Kevin has said this himself, none of these teams want to see Bama. They don't. They don't. As much as you can say the wrong team's in there, none of those teams feel comfortable right now if they have to play Bama.
Oh, that was me. I said that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was Javon. You know what? Maybe it was a Freudian slip, because I think Kevin feels the same way too. I don't think Kevin feels any of these teams feel like it's going to be a cakewalk. Like, oh yeah, we got Bama. Oh, cool. I don't think any of those teams feel like that.
We're not going to give the birthday guy any credit there. Bottom line is he's not a believer in this Bama team. You made a great point, Sean, when you said that they've been depleted at the linebacker position. Guess who's going to be healthy for the playoffs? Those Bama linebackers. So you're going to see a difference. Also, Nick Saban, one of the best motivators out there. You think Nick Saban is not hearing a talk from the Kevin Cornigays of the world that say, we don't know if they're one of the best 4 teams in college football. We don't know. You think Nick Saban isn't going to have a field day in preparation? He is Bill Belichick-like when it comes to preparing for teams with that much advance. Mr. Nick Lozito, do you think
off the bench quotes are going to be all over that bulletin board this week, all over that Saban bulletin board?
Did the committee get it right, Nick? Does Ohio State have a gripe? And do you think Alabama is one of the 4 best teams in the country? Sean has weighed in, I believe, if I'm hearing him correctly. He said that he believes that Alabama is one of the 4 best. Do you think they're one of the 4 best, Nick? And did the committee get it right?
I think they should be favored to win the whole thing. I think they're the best team in the country. 1 loss. I thought heading in they were the best team. They looked like the best team basically over the last 5 years. It seems like they've been running stuff. And their running backs, I mean, they got Najee Harris, who's the top running back in the nation high school last year, and he's like 5th on their depth chart. He barely gets a touch. Scarborough's a monster. I like the way they play. I like SEC football. I'm biased toward SEC, and until these conferences start playing each other on a consistent level in September and October and November, then there's really no way to prove me or anyone otherwise, no matter what your conference allegiance is. I'd love to see how they do it in college basketball, where they do like the Big Ten ACC Challenge or something like that, where you get every team in a conference to play an entire other conference, and you can settle it right there. You settle it early in the season. This team won 7 out of 10 in interconference play. They're the best conference. Prove them otherwise. Otherwise, you're just going to be speculating in December every year.
So for those that follow college football closely, does playing a team like Mercer, which was a team that Alabama played,
I think we called the Mercer Sac State game, right?
Right. Is playing a team like Mercer, is that really a built-in advantage for the SEC? Because they do this every year. Every year, you'll see them playing teams like the Citadel. You'll see them play the Arkansas States, the Mercers of the world. Is that an unfair advantage for the SEC? Because these other first and foremost, they play 1 less conference game than a lot of these other conferences. And then when you play that conference game, 8, 9 games into the schedule, it gives you an opportunity to rest some people and get some people back, your starters back on the field, build that depth again, so that when you're actually going into your final game or 2, so for instance, Alabama, Auburn, and the Iron Bowl, you can rest a guy or 2 when you're playing against Mercer. I think it's kind of an unfair advantage for the SEC from that regard. So I'd like to see a change there. I would like to see them actually add an additional conference game. Now, some people would say the SEC is murderer's row when it comes to scheduling. However, with the proliferation of the Big Ten conference now, as Sean mentioned, the Big Ten is the best conference in his opinion. I think the Big Ten is the best conference as well, top to bottom, because we all know that the bottom of the SEC is absolutely garbage. Javon. You mean to tell me Arkansas was a decent team? Vanderbilt, these teams are at the bottom of the conference. Florida was terrible this year. Tennessee was terrible. Everyone in the SEC East was terrible with the exception of Georgia. What's your commentary there, Kev?
I was going to say every conference, whenever you're playing in conference, it's murderer's row. Every conference, whether you're playing in the Pac-12, you're playing teams that know you, they're familiar with you. Those are always dangerous games. Obviously, the Pac-12, they didn't do themselves any favor because their favorites, Washington State, USC, they had those teams playing on the road on a Friday night for a Friday night standalone game playing on the road. Stanford as well. You got those teams playing on the road on a Friday night. You're not doing your conference any favors trying to get one of these teams into the playoffs. You have them going on the road playing on a Friday night. Alabama never does that. Alabama will never play a Friday night game on the road. Alabama, the week before they play Auburn, they will never play another conference game. They're always going to squeeze in the Citadel or squeeze in Mercer there. So they carefully craft their schedule. In the SEC, they only play 8 conference games, and it's completely unbalanced. Auburn can go 3 years without playing Florida with that schedule. I mean, it's terrible. And so I think, we have to start looking at these conference schedules and ask ourselves, are we going to put everybody on the same plane? Or are we going to allow some teams to get away with these scheduling quirks? So later in the season, they can add a Citadel, they can add a Mercer to their schedule to heal up and then get ready for whatever the big games are. But every team that plays in conference is murderer's row. And the SEC's bottom half of that conference is atrocious. Vanderbilt couldn't win 3 games in the Pac-12. Kentucky, I don't even know if they can win 2 to 3 games in the Big Ten. So I think, the SEC is overrated. I understand people love defensive football, but the quarterback play in that league has a lot to be desired.
Great commentary. I think it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. As I mentioned last week, I'm going to put my bid in, and I'm going to say right now, this Alabama-Clemson game is going to be a barn burner, no question. Clemson, they've looked the part of being the best team all season. Their lone loss coming to Syracuse without Kelly Bryant at the helm. But a healthy Alabama and a motivated Nick Saban, I've seen what they're capable of doing. I have. I'm sorry. I've seen it. I love Dabo Swinney. He's probably one of my favorite coaches. But a motivated Nick Saban with healthy linebackers coming back is going to be tough to beat. Just my personal opinion. So moving on. Oh man, we thought it was hot up to this point, but it's going to get a little bit hotter because everyone's favorite dad on Off the Bench, Lavar Ball, is at it again, fellas. He's at it again. This time, he decides to pull his son, LiAngelo Ball, from UCLA before his suspension was up, pulls him from the school, has him and LaMelo, keep in mind, who technically hasn't graduated high school, pulls them and decides to have them sign with an agent and is looking to have them play basketball overseas. Sean, I'll start with you first. And it's a multi-part question. Question number 1. Do you think that it's sending the wrong message to LiAngelo that LaVar has decided to not make him serve his full punishment in spite of that idiotic shoplifting charge that they had in China? Do you think it sends the wrong message to him that, hey, you don't need to be accountable for the things that you do? And number 2, do you think it's a good or a bad move to have LiAngelo and LaMelo getting ready to go overseas to play basketball without any college exposure?
First and foremost, yes, I do think it sends a wrong message. In some annals, LaVar Ball has been lauded as a great parent. I mean, he's obviously very involved in his children's life. You can't argue the fact that these are 4.0 student and all of these great things. However, some people just cut off their nose to spite their face, and they don't really kind of care what kind of attention they get as long as it's attention. The thing is that, LiAngelo going overseas and making a really dumb mistake, you can kind of chalk it up as, hey, young kid, 19, shoplifted. I shoplifted when I was young. I mean, other people shoplift when they're young. Obviously, the spotlight's on you. You understand what kind of business that you're associated with. You understand how much attention has been garnished by your family. You have to make smarter decisions. But 19-year-old making a dumb decision, I think there's a couple of things that factor into this. He took no time at all in running his teammates under the bus. Hey, I did it because the other guys were doing it. You know what I mean? How welcomed are you back to all of your friends and buddies on the team after you just ran your teammates under the bus? Number two, you come back from overseas, you have an indefinite suspension. Lavar Ball is looking at this as, we understand the reality that he's not being scouted as a top-tier player, or even on the long list of people's scouting lists. LiAngelo's not on that list. And so I think it compounds it being a bad decision, because if you are a 4.0 student with a free ride in college, irrespective of your playing time, you're getting an education. You're not being scouted that way at this time. It allows you to develop under some top-flight coaching that just made the Sweet 16 last year. And I think you get to develop as a basketball player and academically. This guy was going to be a 3 or 4 year player in college anyway, and not get to come out early and be a lottery pick. So I think it's a really bad decision on that account. But if you look at the history of, the two younger sons, they haven't necessarily endeared themselves to, the players on the teams that they're on anyway. And, LaMelo, it also becomes sticky because they have their own brand and they're wearing their own shoe. And this obviously is something that's against what's happening in C2A as far as making money off of your brand, off of your image, that the path that he has him going down really is not commensurate with what is allowed at the elite level. So, a bad decision on that part. And, I think going overseas, I don't think these players get a whole lot better. Obviously, the best competition is here in the U.S. of A. I know some players do this as strategically, because of the age restrictions, go play somewhere for a year, come back to the States, the D League or try to get on a team. But LaMelo is obviously a higher recruiter than Angelo was. I just think this is a big mess. I think it just further states LaVar's decision making post 18. How you raise them, you put them in a good position, but being that involved in some of these decisions is just it's outlandish. It's really I really can't even comprehend how some of these decisions are being made.
Lozito, we haven't heard much of what your thoughts are on LaVar Ball. I know Sean and Kevin have felt strongly about some of the antics and some of the things that LaVar has done and some of the positions that he's put his sons in. But I think you're going to offer a fresh perspective to Off the Bench, because we really don't know how you feel about LaVar. So the same questions go for you. Do you think that
I saw something today that perfectly encapsulated LaVar Ball. I don't know if you saw the Lakers-Philly game earlier tonight, but after the game, Embiid, and I don't know if Embiid and LaVar Ball have any beef or whatnot. I don't know. But Embiid's just chilling outside of the locker room, and somebody says, hey, someone wants to meet you, and it's LaVar Ball. And you can kind of tell Embiid's like, oh, no. And, 5 seconds later, they're hugging. LaVar's, patting him on his head. He's giving him, career advice and all that. He's a con man. He'll get you, and it doesn't matter if you like him or you don't like him. You spend a minute with him, and you'll be wrestling around, giving each other, wet willies and stuff. He's just that kind of dude. I don't know if he's a con man or a businessman or a great father or a horrible father, but that said a lot about me. The fact that Embiid was a little bit hesitant, and then 5 seconds later they were just wrestling around. But I don't know. He wants to do what's best for his kids as far as making money for the family and with the Big Baller brand. And if the best decision for him and his kids is going pro, then so be it. I just wish it's obvious that the kids aren't making these decisions. It's obviously that the 19-year-old or 18-year-old college kid isn't dictating his own future. Maybe he really liked his math class freshman semester, you know? I don't know, but obviously they're not making the decisions. So, and with Lonzo, I feel like he's coming on a little. I feel like he's soft in the NBA. He's passing up chances to kind of go toe-to-toe with some of the more physical players in the league, and it seems like every time it comes up, he's walking away. And I wonder, and maybe it's a stretch, but if him being kind of coddled by his father, he doesn't know how to fend for himself, because out on the court, it's just him, you know? And he seems to shy away from that kind of stuff.
Nick, let me jump in and say that LaVar was critical of the Lakers brass for not being tough enough on his son Lonzo. He said that they were too soft on the rookies there, and this was when Lonzo was going through a rough patch. I mean, maybe he's still in his rough patch, but he was saying that he didn't necessarily appreciate the way Luke Walton was coaching Lonzo because he wasn't hard enough on him. So that's
I don't even know what that means. What does that even mean? Hard on him how?
Who knows?
Like running more laps.
I think Kev and Sean have already established that they don't have very much respect for LaVar Ball's AAU coaching, nor his coaching antics. So him giving advice about coaching is not necessarily going to be the most credible source. So
Javon,
Nick, yeah.
My thing is, what did he say in Lonzo Ball when his other teammates were engaged in a conflict with another team, and he literally walked the other direction? What is there? Critical. Hey, they need to show him how to be a better teammate, and if they walk the other direction. What did he say about that? I didn't hear Pete.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to get in a fight. I don't want to get in a fight either, but I don't play in the NBA.
Kev, I just want you to know that for your birthday, I got an order in for LaVar or Lonzo Ball's shoe for you, man. I'm going to put out the cash for you so that you can get those shoes as a birthday/Christmas gift from your brothers here on Off the Bench. I know you're waiting for that one.
Oh,
Kev, I know you have strong feelings about LaVar Ball and his antics. Again, I'll pose the same question to you that I posed to Nick and Sean. Do you think it sent the wrong message to have LaVar pull LiAngelo from UCLA? And two, do you think it was a bad idea to have LaMelo and LiAngelo sign with agents in pursuit of overseas basketball?
yes and yes. At some point, LaVar is going to have to cut the umbilical cord to his children and allow them to make decisions. Number two, it's a bad idea because they're banking everything. They're banking their entire family business on the success of Lonzo Ball. And right now, it looks like he's a bust. Nothing that LaVar Ball is doing works. Let me ask you this question. All right, let's just talk results. Forget the opinion. Are you satisfied with the results you're getting from Lonzo Ball in his rookie year with the Los Angeles Lakers? The answer is probably no. Were you satisfied with the results that you're getting of LiAngelo Ball and his time in the country of China? Were you satisfied with the results that you got there? The answer is probably no. Were you satisfied with the results that you got out of LaMelo Ball in his senior year or junior year of high school this year for Chino Hills? Are you satisfied with those results? The answer is probably no. What has LaVar done this year? What has he done that has worked? Nothing has worked.
Have you seen that freshman highlight tape though of LaMelo?
I saw it.
Yeah, it's pretty legit.
And I saw one step beyond the half court line, him shooting threes. I did not see one pass in that highlight tape. Not one pass.
Points? Did he have 100 points, Kevin?
He scored 100.
Those clicks matter. Those clicks matter.
They do. As far as the development of his two younger sons and the fundamentals of the game of basketball, remember, Lonzo taught all three of his children how to play the game of basketball. Or LaVar did. Lonzo's lacking basic fundamentals, which is why he's really struggling in the NBA. LiAngelo is lacking basic fundamentals. He probably should be playing football. And another reason I wouldn't have taken him out of UCLA, I would have seen if he could possibly walk on with Chip Kelly's team, the UCLA Bruins, and possibly play football. Maybe the tight end position, a la Tony Gonzalez, or a guy like
His dad played tight end. LaVar played tight end.
Yeah. The tight end for the San Diego. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He plays basketball. Antonio Gates. Those guys were former basketball players. They transitioned to the game of football. Julius Peppers, another guy. He played some college basketball, transitioned to football, and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So LiAngelo Ball was never going to be an NBA prospect, so he needed 4 years to possibly develop into a guy that could maybe get drafted in the second round. Maybe he can earn a non-draftable contract and try out for the team as a spot-up shooter. And then the youngest kid, who really needs to develop as a point guard. He doesn't know how to play pick-and-roll basketball. He's below average passer when you look at some of the game tape. And now you take these guys overseas. Forget just out of high school, but you're taking this young man overseas to try to develop against that competition over there in Europe? I mean, where's he going to go? Istanbul? Turkey? So I think when you look at LaVar Ball, he's so stubborn and he's so headstrong that he's making bad decisions, for his youngest boys, because that's a bad decision to take them overseas. They won't develop. Sean made a great point. They won't develop over there because they haven't been in the system. They put their kids in the system at 12, 13, 14 years old. That's where they start them off. Dirk Nowitzki is a guy that was playing professional ball 14, 15 years old. They start them off that young and develop them throughout the years. And so you bring in two Americans overseas, they're going to get worked over. So it's a bad decision. Hopefully Lonzo Ball is able to be the all-star that they told us that he was going to be, because everything is on his shoulders. I don't see anything from the younger Ball brothers in terms of playing professionally, especially over here in the States. Bad move. And nothing LaVar has done worked. Nothing has worked. Nothing.
I'm going to throw a couple names out there, and I want to see what you guys think, because I think we're really missing a big component to what LaVar has done so far. Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian. Okay? Reality stars that have been able to monetize and capitalize off of their presence. LaVar has succeeded in making sure that the Ball family is relevant. He has a son that's in the NBA, his oldest son. LaMelo, for all intent and purposes, is a star. They have a show. They have a reality show. He's got a ton of followers on Twitter, Instagram. They're stars, whether we want to sit here and believe it or not. And I know LaVar Ball hasn't made all of the best decisions, at least by my estimation. One thing I can say is he's put his kids in a position to where they can monetize off their likeness and off their image. And so while I don't agree with taking LaMelo out of school, I don't agree with taking LiAngelo out of school, I think you're not showing LiAngelo that accountability is at the forefront of being a responsible adult. I think he should have served that punishment for that foolishness that they committed over in China. And I think he should have waited until after his son was reinstated before he decided to pull him if he was going to pull him. So I agree with all of that, but I will say this. We're talking about LiAngelo right now. We're talking about LaMelo. We're talking about Lavar on Off the Bench podcasts. They're talking about LiAngelo, LaMelo, and Lavar on ESPN on Fox. That's worth something, and they can monetize that. Moving on, we got another hot topic. I think we're on fire tonight. It's going to get a little bit hotter because the Golden State Warriors are our next topic. The Golden State Warriors are currently leading the league in technical fouls. Kevin Durant and Draymond Green are second and third in technicals received, respectively, in the league. Kevin Durant has been ejected 3 times. Steph Curry has been ejected. And so my question to you gentlemen is this. Are the Warriors mentally unraveling, or are they simply trying to ensure that they aren't seen as a champion that's soft? Because they understand that most teams in this league, I'll say 99% of the teams in the league, don't have the talent to even be on the court with the Warriors. So they need to do these things to attempt to get in their heads. And it seems like the Warriors are obliging right now. Are they mentally unraveling, or are they simply trying to stand their ground and say, listen, we won't be mentally intimidated. Yes, we won the championship last year, but we're hungry. We care. That's the reason why we've got Durant getting thrown out of games and the reason why we have Steph Curry getting thrown out of games. So I will start with you first, Lozito, Oaktown resident, lifelong Warrior fan. Which is it? Which is it?
Two things. I think they complain more than any other team in the league, led by Draymond. Every play, Curry too. Every play, they're jawing with the refs, and Green takes it to another level. But I think some of it too is players are coming at them, especially young guys, guys that are looking to establish themselves as legit players in the league, know the cameras are on them and want to instigate stuff. And the Warriors know they can afford to be not financially, that's a lot of money out of their pocket, but as far as player personnel-wise, they can afford to sit out games. Livingston got ejected and suspended for a game that he was going to rest anyways. So like they're 13 deep. They can have 4 guys suspended every game and still go 60-22. Problem is if they start adding up those technicals and they result in suspensions in the playoffs, like what happened with Draymond in Game 6, cost them an NBA Finals probably. That's the only thing they have to worry about, that and the paycheck lost. But as far as losing players for 1 or 2 games at a time, that doesn't mean anything to the Warriors. And I'm not worried about them losing their cool when it matters, except for, of course, Draymond.
Now, Steve Kerr, I thought it was interesting that Steve Kerr said that they needed to do a better job of keeping their composure. And I was ready to bash him until he said, and that starts with me as well, because I've seen Steve Kerr on ballistic on the sidelines as well. And Steve, stop trying to fool us. We know that you fought Michael Jordan. Okay, Michael punched you in the eye, and we know that you did everything that you could with Michael Jordan. So, Steve, I'm glad you took some responsibility and you put the onus on yourself to have the change start with you. Kev, you off the record, you were very, very passionate about this topic. You threw things out there like Kevin Durant was being a fake tough guy because he actually got kicked out of a game for an altercation with DeMarcus Cousins. That's got to be the first time that I've ever heard someone take that stance. We're talking about DeMarcus Cousins, and you're saying that Kevin Durant was being a fake tough guy because he was, I don't know if you think he was bullying DeMarcus Cousins, but I was always taught if you're going to stand up.
Hold on, the biggest fake tough guy ever for a Warrior, and all Warrior fans remember this one, Mike Dunleavy. He was like 3 years in the league, was averaging like, you know those guys that average 16 points and nothing else? Like 16 points and like 0.7 rebounds? That was Dunleavy. And he never showed any emotion. I remember one game, he got ejected and took his shirt off. And he was just like the skinniest, palest dude. And it was just every Warrior fan just had facepalm before the facepalm thing even existed. But at the same time, it was kind of nice to see him show a little emotion. But that was the ultimate fake tough guy. I don't know about Durant.
Classic Warriors history there. Kev, you said that Kevin Durant was a fake tough guy. Give us some type of insight as to whether the Warriors are mentally unraveling, or do you think they're simply trying to stand their ground?
I don't think they're mentally unraveling. I think Steve Kerr made a great point, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, that they've got to control their emotions a lot better. It's rare that you see a champion in any sport. I'm trying to remember, in any sport, it's rare that you see that team have as many disqualifications, have this many technical fouls or personal fouls. Normally the champ is so composed in each and every situation that they're faced with. Look at all the great dynasties, and this is the Warriors are becoming a dynasty now, but even go back to the Spurs, always composed, the Heat composed, the 2003 Lakers, Shaq and Kobe, even though they had a lot of strife internally, just always composed. Jordan's Bulls composed, Magic's Lakers and the Celtics. The only team that was really out of control was the bad boy Detroit Pistons. But other than that, so, to see them, lose control, getting these technical fouls, I understand Draymond Green. He came into the league as a tough guy, a goon out of Michigan State. He had to get every ounce of talent out of that 6'6", 6'7" frame. He came in overweight, worked on his jump shot, defensively, terrific second-round draft pick. But Kevin Durant, come on, man. I mean, never in your career have you ever had as many technicals as you have now. And I think it goes back to last summer when he made the decision to leave OKC and go to Golden State. You get the fake Twitter account over the summer, him justifying why he had to make the switch. And then you get, him and Russ Westbrook going toe-to-toe. I mean, the trash talk in those games was fierce, and it was deeper than it's just basketball. We're just having fun. It was deeper. It was personal. I don't know. I don't understand why all of a sudden Kevin Durant wants to walk around trying to punt guys in this league and run it up on a DeMarcus Cousins as if he's ready to square up and go toe-to-toe with this guy in the middle of the basketball court. I don't understand that. I don't understand Steph getting so mad earlier in the year he's throwing out a mouthpiece, so on and so forth. So I agree with Nick. They complain. Cleveland's up there too. LeBron complains an awful lot to the officials. But he's a lot more composed. He's a lot more composed than a Kevin Durant, than a Draymond Green, and even a Steph Curry. So I agree with Steve Kerr. They got to handle their emotions a little bit more. Look, let's be honest. This isn't going to affect whether they're going to get back to the finals or not. If everybody is healthy, they're going to go right back to the finals and probably face Cleveland. So I'm not trying to say that. But it is peculiar and it is a little funny that we have a champ, a dominating champ, who is acting, as if every little thing is bothering them on the basketball floor. I'm not used to seeing champions act that way. I'm used to seeing them being above the fray, never panicking, and taking your best shot, signing off saying thank you very much, see you later, moving on to the next city and winning again. That's what I'm used to seeing. But yeah, the Kevin Durant thing irritates me a lot because that's not who that guy is. Kevin Durant's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He's a nice fellow. Mama's boy. I'm a mama's boy too. I don't have no problem with that. But he's a nice guy, man. Walks around with the backpack on, the glasses and everything like that. He's a nice gentleman. And to see him as if Draymond is influencing him to act like he's some goon or something out on the basketball court. I just think that's weak, and I think that's sorry. That's just my take on it.
Listen, he's a fierce competitor. He's always been a fierce competitor, Kev. Going back to his days in OKC, he's been a fierce competitor. He's from DC, so he is a nice kid. But people change when they're involved in the midst of competition, and I think the stakes are very high for him as well as the Warriors. They're aware that they're in the midst of a dynasty, and everybody knows that they're the favorite. If the Warriors don't win the championship, it will be considered a major disappointment. Mr. Sean Dustin, and to your point, Kev, LeBron James received his first ever ejection of his career this year. So it may be something that's in the air. Sean, you were part of the off the line conversation. You were witnessing Mr. Cornegay call Kevin Durant a fake tough guy, and you chimed in and really gave some perspective as to why Kevin Durant was doing what he was doing. I'm still thrown for a loop at somebody somehow doing something wrong for standing up to Boogie Cousins. This is a guy that was trying to punk his own team. His own teammates in Sacramento, but yet you have a problem with Kevin Durant getting into it. That's another story for another day. But Sean, what's your take on the Warriors and all the texts they've been getting, and solve this issue once and for all? Is Kevin Durant a fake tough guy? I need a perspective from you.
First, I'm not taking the narrative that Kevin said about these gentlemen. I'm going to take your bad boy Pistons and raise you a Rasheed Wallace, okay, with the mid-2000s Pistons, a guy that led the league in fouls. They're part of a melee. I'm taking your bad boy Pistons and raising you a mid-2000 Pistons, first and foremost. I don't think Kevin Durant in any way, shape, or form is a fake tough guy. This is a guy who has always played with a chip on his shoulder. He led the nation in scoring as a freshman, a true freshman, at the University of Texas, comes in, team gets sold, there's no loyalty, he's frustrated. At the combine, he can't lift 100 pounds. Everybody's talking about it. He's embarrassed. He's like, give me the damn ball and let me play basketball. Can these players check me, or I got to lift weights? He's always had a chip on his shoulder. He's the youngest scoring champion in NBA league history. This guy has been a consummate competitor since he came in the league. Boogie Cousins is a tough guy. I'm sorry. He fights everybody but players. He fights the media. He fights on social networks, referees. I've never seen this guy get in a fight. I don't want to hear Cousins guy. Being irritable, being petty, and being confrontational, combative doesn't make you tough. Make you a big baby or a grown man acting like that. Kevin Durant has taken the onus to become a more physical, defensive-minded player this year. He leads the league in blocks. The guy's out there competing. So I'm not going to let you push me around. I'm not going to let you talk smack in my face. I like this from the Golden State Warriors. We went from being darlings, somewhat fragile, but let's not put it past Golden State on being petty to begin with. Whether it's Klay Thompson making little smug comments, Steph Curry making his little comments, champagne, I still smells like champagne in their locker room, all of that. These guys aren't above being petty. They like the target on their back, and they're embracing it. They're like, look, you know what? We're tired of just playing pretty ball or whatever. Draymond's lead has permeated throughout that team. There's a bunch of dogs in that locker room. There's a bunch of guys who like competing, whether they're going to sacrifice endorsements to get it or not is something different. They're going to play the role, they're going to get their money, and they're going to be competitive on the court. That's like saying, hey, Michael Jackson's, really shy. Not on stage, he ain't. On stage, he ain't. What's going on? He might sit in them interviews and be quiet and sheep. Not when it's time to perform, he ain't. And neither is Kevin Durant. You can say all that about backpack and glasses. When he's on the court, he's talking that. He's mad dogging. He's taking dagger shots to rip out your heart, and he's an assassin. He always has been. He's lived in the light that LeBron James has cast over the league for his peers and constituents, but he's always been a top-flight competitive player. And I think he's tired of trying to please people. He's testy with the media now. He's much more opinionated than he used to be, and he's a person that's grown up in front of our eyes from a 19-year-old kid who may have been wide-eyed and not know what's going on to understanding how dirty and treacherous this business is, what you have to do to win, and he's embraced it, and he's tired of faking it. I like it.
Listen, that's a great take. It's a great take because Kevin Durant, and not just Kevin Durant, people, they mature, they change. He's not the same person that he was 10 years ago. The things that you may have been able to get away with 10 years ago was not going to fly with an MVP / world champion, somebody that's hungry for more. And I think the Golden State Warriors, the chippiness, I like it because it means that they care. They're not worried about getting complacent. You know why they're not worried about getting complacent? Because they're too busy trying to fight, scratch, and claw for victory so they can get back to the champion circle. And I got to respect that. You know, I think as a society, I honestly think that when we see aggression on any type of level, when we see it, it makes us a little uncomfortable, right? It makes us a little uncomfortable, especially if we can't identify with why the aggression is happening. But I would liken it to a person that's in a very desperate situation. Say, for instance, you're not going to be able to make your rent. Okay, you're not going to be able to make your rent, and you're scrambling, you're panicking, you're trying to call this person, hey, can I borrow this money? Oh, no, you can't borrow this money, but you can come work here and make some extra money. And you're like, well, I'll do whatever I got to do. I'll do whatever I got to do to get that money. I got to pay the rent. So we don't understand those situations until we're in those situations ourselves. Now, that's a more extreme version of what the Warriors are going through right now. But the Warriors, they must win a championship by any means necessary. And a lot of times that sweet image that we've come to know for Kevin Durant and for the baby face Steph Curry, that sweet image goes out the window when everybody understands how high the stakes are. So I like it. I like the chippiness. I like to continue to see that. And best believe if the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors meet once again, I believe would be for what, a fourth straight time? There's going to be some fireworks. No question about that. From LeBron, D. Wade, everybody, even Derrick Rose might even limp his way on the court and somehow find a way to be involved with that. Gentlemen, we've come to the end of our time. We have. It's been a wonderful session.
Hey, Javon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can we ask Nick one quick local question before we head out?
Yes.
Hey, Nick, I saw some news about the Oakland A's, their stadium, and Laney College denying them an opportunity to negotiate. Do you think they'll get a stadium built, and where do you think it's going to be located?
I don't know. I'm about 8 blocks from where they were going to build that one, so that was disappointing from a personal standpoint. That would have been cool to walk to a Major League Baseball game. But I think the most realistic is to build on the Coliseum site once the Raiders are gone. Everyone kind of seems to think that's the most realistic. Problem with that is, from a financial standpoint, not that I'm worried about the A's finances, but it also has something to do with them going out and signing players. It would be nice to have a downtown ballpark because, like the Kings did with their downtown, you invest in the hotels and restaurants around it, and it's a much bigger thing than just relying on attendance and parking every game. You can actually kind of build a Coliseum community. The site they picked was going to be a tough one. Anytime you're going toe-to-toe with public education, you're generally not going to win, especially in the Bay Area. You might win that battle in Texas, but you're not winning it in Oakland. So it was a tough battle for them. and it wasn't like they were tearing up the university, but it was going to impact the Laney College in terms of noise and just 30,000 people on your campus trying to get through your campus to go into a baseball game. You could see how that would be put the students in a weird position, but it would have been nice to see them try to work through it and figure out a way to make it work. But I think the best bet is them staying at the Coliseum site.
Not enough room in Jack London Square?
Jack London's tough because there's no BART down there.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no direct freeway access, I don't think, to the Howard Terminal,
Right.
which is like a mile up from it. It would have been, I think it would be great for the people who live in Oakland and can kind of figure out a way to get down there, but I think centrally locating it downtown with the BART station makes the most sense. But then again, the AT&T is not right near BART, and neither is the arena they're building for the Warriors, so it didn't stop those two organizations.
Great insight. Great insight. Thank you for that, Nick, and thank you for joining us on Off the Bench podcast. It was a truly great time having you, and we hope that you won't be a stranger, and we hope that you'll come back and kick it with us sometime in the near future. Can we get a commitment from you today?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to be back. Thanks for having me, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Can't do
All
it
right.
on a
Great.
Thursday night.
And we caught you. You were off from your job, so we appreciate you spending that time with us. Kev, Sean, as always, much appreciated. You know, I was gonna put Lavar Ball on the bench today, but I think in making that final point that I made about him monetizing the brand, the Big Baller brand, and LaMelo and LiAngelo, their visibility, I kind of talked myself out of putting him on the bench because they can capitalize on what LaVar has done. So there's my pump fake for putting somebody on the bench. We're going to omit that session this week, and I'm sure we'll be back next week with another worthy candidate.
Wait, you're not putting anyone on the bench this week?
I was going to put LaVar Ball on the bench, but...
Is there like a running theme in the show that you're just ditching because you can't figure something out? You can figure something out real quick.
I can't in good conscience put LaVar Ball on the bench. I can't. I know you wouldn't have a problem putting somebody on the bench, Sean. So since you seem to be itching to do it, the floor is yours.
All right, LaVar, you're on the bench. Here's the thing. In addition, I'm hearing a lot of stuff about monetizing brands. One thing that's a consistent theme with monetizing brands is success. In your case, there hasn't been success to draw from. Hey, let's take it to sneakers, for example. Michael Jordan, collegiate player of the year, college champion, NBA rookie of the year, leading the league in scoring. Hey, there's something to build off of there. 0 for 4, 0 for 2, 4 points, not a lot to build off of. I'm sorry. Commit to UCLA, don't play there anymore, not a lot to build off of. I'm hearing stuff like, hey, the Kardashians, they're known as a curse in the NBA. And you know what? You are too now. They've had to create rules at the Lakers building around media attention that LaVar is bringing. You're a cancer to the NBA. Now you're a cancer to UCLA. And from a society in general, this type of loudmouth, gallivanting, fake facts, outlandish, some people call it a hot take. You know, when you're just bumping your gums and there's no substance behind it, I don't call it a hot take. I call it unethical. You know, ethos, pagos, and logos. That's what I learned about. Any ethics involved in this. I see a person money hungry, and even at their children's expense, I'm gonna pull all the strings. LaVar, you're on the bench. Now you might have to go overseas and sit on a bench over there. I don't even know how to say bench. and other things. And Kevin, Istanbul, Turkey, I think one former NBA MVP, Allen Iverson, played in Turkey. So maybe there is some good balling there. We'll see. But for now, LaVar, arrivederci. You're on the bench. Sit your ass on the bench.
That's classic. Listen, I'm going to try to get LaVar Ball on this show one day so we could actually have him help build our brand. So we could have him help build our brand, and we could get some ratings and some followers. I bet you that would work. Again, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. And we will see you all next week for another episode of Off the Bench. Y'all have a good weekend.